It's about Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt and the abuse that the children went through. If you can't go through this, jump off this video right now. Hi y'all, it's Kimberly here. Thank you for coming to my channel. Well, today's video is going to be probably the hardest video I've ever made. The subject matter is a little bit shocking. It's about Ruby Franke and her journals and Jodi Hildebrandt and the abuse that they projected onto these children. And I usually don't do videos this dark, but it's one of the most horrible. I cried when I saw the evidence. They released the evidence 2 or 3 days ago, I believe, in this case. The audio, the recordings, a lot of things from the court cases, everything from the court case was released a few days ago. And there's tons of videos that have been made, and I tried the very first day, as soon as the information came out, and I cried for like the first 2 days I was trying to make the video. I cried. It was just shocking and horrible to me. So if you are sensitive to this subject matter, you might not want to watch this video. I'm not going to show things that are real graphic, but there's some parts of it that may be disturbing to some people. So this is your trigger warning. This is, you know, right now, right here, I'm telling you, if you don't want to hear or see about this type of subject, it's very sensitive to some people, I know. So skip this video, go to one of my others. If you can't take this video, then please just go to the next. So now that I got that warning out of the way, I just want to make it very clear to people. You know, I am going to show a few things, not super graphic, but there are some things that it will be disturbing to some people. But one of the reasons why I'm doing this is this case is one of the cases that rarely gets caught at the right time. I mean, this could have been a tragic, horrible, it could have had a horrible ending. But thank goodness there was some kind of intervention at the time that it happened, that it didn't progress to, you know, a horrific ending. What happened was horrific enough, but we have cases that come through the court system that they barely are caught in time, but a lot of them are not, and they have tragic, horrible endings, like comparable to the Lori Vallow case, the Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow case, where they were trying to do sort of the same thing I believe that Ruby Franke was doing. They were obsessed with the religious aspect of their children's upbringing, and it progressed into something just very, very dangerous and very horrible, and that case did not have a good outcome. Those children did not survive. And there's similarities, I believe, in this case and what happened with Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. And thank goodness this case, like I say, was caught right at the, I mean, I don't think it could have gone on much longer. I really don't. I don't believe these children could have survived much longer. This video is probably going to be very long. It may be in 2 parts. I'm not really sure. I'm going to probably heavily edit it. There's parts that I'm going to use a lot of graphics and things, photos, screenshots, things that I've taken, and then there's somewhere I'll be talking on it. Just remember, there is a warning on this video, so if you are sensitive to this subject, please just skip to another video. This is Ruby Franke, an ex-YouTuber who used to run a channel called 8 Passengers with her husband, Kevin Franke. They had very strict ideas about running their family, and it was seemed to be faith-based. Kevin has since filed for divorce since the arrest of Ruby, and they had been separated for 13 months before she was even arrested. This is Jodi Hildebrandt, an ex-psychologist and counselor who formed the company Connections. Connections offered life coaching services and family counseling. She reached out to Ruby Franke, they became friends, and Ruby began working with her at Connections. They also ran a podcast called Moms of Truth. In this podcast, they would give family and parenting advice. Okay, I'm going to give a synopsis of what ultimately led up to Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke's arrest. Ruby Franke became friends with Jodi Hildebrandt through Jodi Hildebrandt's counseling services. Their family ended up using Jodi Hildebrandt's counseling services through Connections, and I believe she started with the older boy, Chad, and I'm not real sure, but I believe that she started counseling the other children. It's not real clear, but then she ultimately focused on Ruby and Kevin and their marital problems. And she convinced, there's a whole backstory to this, and it's extremely bizarre. It's just full of craziness. But I'm going to give a short little synopsis here. I might make another video going into the backstory. It's such a bizarre, crazy backstory. But anyway, she ended up counseling Ruby Franke and Kevin on their marital problems. And she undermined Ruby's trust and Kevin's trust also, and ended up living with them for a short period of time. And she convinced Kevin to move out of the house, and also convinced Ruby of this, that this was the best way to resolve their marital problems, that he had to leave the family home and not have any contact with them for up to a year. And he agreed to this. And Jodi Hildebrandt has done this to other couples too, and she has subsequently been sued for situations like this through her counseling of other couples, and it resulting in what they claim, some of the men claim, were, basically destroying their character and their lives. And she has been sued before, and she did lose her license, her counseling license, for a period of time because of some of this controversy with the way that she has instructed men to leave their families and not have any contact. And so Kevin ended up agreeing to this. He moved out of the home, and he was a professor at BYU. And then I'm not sure, but he did get another job. He is not a professor anymore at BYU. But in that course of time, he was living by himself, and he was a professor for a while. And then I believe, I don't know. I did hear something to the effect of what kind of job he did, but I can't remember what it was now. But he ended up just kind of living his own life, just moving away, living his own life, had very little contact with Ruby, had zero contact with the kids. And to me, that's basically like a deadbeat dad. And to do this at the behest of a counselor, that to me is not a good coping tool to reinforce a marriage and make it stronger, and to make their bond stronger. I think it does the total opposite. But he put his trust in her, and him and Ruby both trusted her. They both did this, went through with it. And I believe Ruby and him spoke maybe 3 or 4 times in a 1-year time period, just short phone calls. And there was one time that they did meet a few months, I think it was a few months prior to her being arrested. Might have been somewhere in the middle of 2023, somewhere around that. Maybe in the summer or something like that, that she called and she wanted the cars, which were titled in his name. She wanted them transferred into her name. And he agreed to this. And I think that she also tried to get the house or sell the house, but she couldn't do it because the house was titled in both their names, so she wasn't able to do that. But on August 30th, I'm not going to use the younger children's names. They've already been on YouTube. They were on YouTube for years, but because of this case, I think they need a little bit, it's hard for them to be anonymous because they're already all over the internet. There's tons of videos of the kids still floating all around YouTube on the internet, but I'm not going to use the two youngest children that were with Ruby, that they ultimately ended up living in Jodi Hildebrandt's house. I'm going to call the little girl E and the boy, the 12-year-old boy, R. The little girl is 10 years old and the boy is 12. And he escaped from Jodi Hildebrandt's house. He had been detained, as what the man that ultimately ended up calling the police told the 911 operators that, or the 911 operator, that obviously he's been detained. And he was talking about how R, the young 12-year-old boy, had plastic wrap around his wrist with duct tape around each wrist, both wrists, and both of his ankles. And it was so sad because the boy, at first he went to one house, nobody was home. He went to another house, and this man did come out and start talking to him. And R, the little boy, asked this man to call the police or take him to the police. And the man said, well, come and let's sit down and talk about it. And he said, the little boy said, or he asked him what's going on? And because he could see the duct tape and everything. And R, the little boy, said, it's personal business. I mean, what a little man. He is so strong, and so his will to, he was very defiant. There were journals that Ruby kept, and she detailed so much of what was going on and the things that they did to the children. And R, the little boy, he was very defiant, and he did use some language, FU language and other language, and he really tried to fight against what was happening to him, to the point where they ended up using ropes, handcuffs, detaining him, hog-tying him. They used starvation methods and dehydration and a lot of physical labor and horrible conditions, like outside in the Utah heat in the middle of summer. It can be like over 100 degrees. And they were using those kind of physical conditions to, I guess, work out the devil out of them. They were being told they were possessed, they had the devil in them, just really horrible things. And it was detailed in this journal that Ruby Franke kept of everything that was going on. But this little boy, he was such a hero, such a hero. He escaped from the house. He went to find help. The police, the paramedics came. They were very concerned, put him in an ambulance. And they also questioned him about what was going on. You know, is there are his siblings in the same kind of situation? And he said that I'm not sure if he told them. I don't think he directly said no, but not in the same condition. But the little girl was malnourished, dehydrated, and to me she was basically in the same condition. But I think in his mind he was I think he was taking the brunt of it, and I think he was being more defiant, so he was getting more punishment. But in his mind, he was saying that it was his fault, which tells you to the level that these children, they were born into this. They were born into this religion. They were Mormon by faith. But these are extreme views. This is not what most Mormons are about. This is a one particular family that this happened to, and I don't believe that this is something that is rampant in the Mormon religion. I really don't, but I do think they are very strict. I mean, they are very strict about a lot of things in that religion, but this is an extreme view, and this is something that was being manipulated through Jodi Hildebrandt being a counselor, and she found a person who was already in a frame of mind that would accept this kind of, I don't know, extreme thought process. And she ended up, Ruby Franke ended up coming back to the house. The police raided Jodi Hildebrandt's house. They arrested both Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke. When the police arrived at Jodi Hildebrandt's house, they knocked on the door. She has a huge house. It's about 10,000 square feet. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and it's gigantic. And it has all kinds of stairways and hallways and a lot of different rooms, bedrooms, closets, a lot of bathrooms. Just, it's a massive house. And she opened the door. She had her lawyer on speakerphone, and they told her to step out of the house, and she said, no, I'm not going to. And they immediately just ripped her out of the house, just pulled her out, and she was yelling, whoa, 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 you can't come in my house without a search warrant. Do you have a search warrant? She kept asking for a search warrant, and they kind of sort of ignored her a little bit, you know, like a lot of times police do. But then they told her they were searching the house under exigent circumstances, which means either police will enter a building or somewhere under exigent circumstances when it's like an emergency, if somebody's being harmed or they think somebody's in trouble, or if there's evidence, you know, being destroyed or something like that in that manner, and to, you know, to preserve evidence for a crime. And they went in, they were searching it, and it took about 45 minutes for them to search, and they were looking for R's little sister, E. And it took a while for them to find her, and Jodi finally did tell them that she was in a certain area, and they went and they found her. And at this time, she also had been renting out one side of her house as a Airbnb, and there were two people supposedly in the other side of the house, one area of the house, and I'm not sure if they weren't there at the time it was being raided. I don't really. It never showed any other people, but she had been doing that, and then they found the little girl in a closet, and she was sitting cross-legged, and she had been given a buzz cut by Ruby Franke as some form of punishment, cut her long hair off. She was just like a bag of bones, and she sat there with her legs crossed, not wanting to come out of the closet, and they were trying to coax her out and trying to be very careful with her because, you know, she's obviously traumatized and been through so much, and she's already distrusting of police, the way that she's been brought up with Ruby. I believe that Ruby had some kind of sovereign citizen type of mentality, and I don't know, she may have transferred that to children about police officer or authority figures, something like that. I'm not real sure, but I think she's probably trying to transfer that onto her children. And so the little girl was very, very scared and would not come out for 4 hours. They tried to get this child to come out of the closet, you know, telling her it's okay, we're here to help, we're not going to hurt you or anything like that. And finally they came up with the idea to give her food. And they got a personal pizza. And at first she didn't want to eat it, but she was so hungry, so starving. This child was so starving. She ate the entire personal pizza, and then they got a large pizza, and she ate half of that. And she's just a 10-year-old girl. That should tell you, you know, how hungry this child was. And eventually she did get up and walk out. She was very frail and very, you could just tell she had been through so much. She was just, you know, worn out from everything that had been happening to her. And they ended up taking those 2 children to the hospital. The father was contacted, I believe, by Ruby Franke, telling him to come in. It's an emergency, come and pick up the kids. And he ended up going to the police station. He went through a couple of, I think, a long interview, and then I believe that he did a second interview. The first interview was, he was kind of in shock, because I truly believe he had no idea what was going on. A lot of people say, yeah, he was in on it, but I don't believe that he did, because of this weird situation that Jodi Hildebrandt did not want him around. And at the time that this was unfolding, Jodi Hildebrandt had been looking at land so that they could take the kids out on in the middle of nowhere to fix these kids, because they were so demonized. And to me, that is just the most frightening thought ever, that those kids would have been, you know, spirited away, and I just know they would not have survived. They would not. They were barely clinging on as it was, and they were rescued, you know, just in the nick of time. And that little boy, he's just a hero. He's a hero for doing this. That he had the strength and the mental capacity to be that strong-willed and to escape. And it's the second time he had to escape. The first time he escaped, Ruby Franke found him walking down the road and made him get back in the car. And they were forcing him to sleep outside and stay outside day and night until he escaped the first time, when he tried to run away. And so then they started detaining him with ropes and handcuffs and all this other hog tying and stuff like that. And I don't think that Kevin knew that this was going on. I really don't think he did, because they hardly spoke. Ruby and him hardly even spoke at all. And when she was trying to get the title of the house, there's a possibility that it might have been to purchase this land, put a down payment or something on it with Jodi Hildebrandt. And Jodi Hildebrandt was almost was in the process of trying to sell her house, and it's a mansion. It was worth, I think, around $5 million. So it's a massive, beautiful, extremely large house. And I think that they were looking at a property that was about 500 acres, and it was out, you know, way out in the Utah desert, and would have been secluded. There was no way that these kids would have been able to get out of this situation. And thankfully they were just rescued at the right moment. And at the very, very, very last moment, I'm going to say, to me, I truly believe that. This is Jodi Hildebrandt being pulled out of her house by the police. This is Ruby Franke being handcuffed. And now I'm going to show you body condition photos. This is E in the closet, finally leaving the closet after 4 hours. And here's some of the equipment stuff that they used. Ropes, handcuffs, being collected as evidence. This is the duct tape wrapped around R's wrist and his legs. Now this is the body condition again of these children.